Hey guys, welcome back to Vincefield Customs. So today we're going to be repairing a XM Studios Weapon X statue. Now, I have never repaired or customized any XM Studio statues yet because on their site they claim everything is cold cast porcelain. And cold cast porcelain is different than regular resin or polystone. Now, porcelain or cold cast porcelain is basically you mix up your chemical or whatever, you pour it into a mold and then you let it cure up and then you're done. Now, porcelain stuff that I've worked on in the past or I've repaired or even kind of toyed with was like, all those, Disney studio statues that you would see at those Disney stores in the malls back in the day, all those porcelain statues. So sometimes those porcelain statues are very, very fragile and they can like shatter like an eggshell. And other times that could be a porcelain like a kitchen sink or, a bathroom sink or a bathroom tub where the porcelain's so damn strong it's almost indestructible. The reason why I say I'm always wary about something that says cold cast porcelain is because back in the day, somebody sent me a Donald Duck cold cast porcelain statue. It was probably like about this big, and they wanted me to turn it into Howard the Duck. And I used diamond tip drill bits. I used all kinds of drill bits you can imagine, and I could not drill that sucker out. It was like it was unbelievably tough, and it wasn't ceramic. It was like porcelain, like like a kitchen sink and stuff. So it was a nightmare. So I never really messed with XM statues. I've always told people like if you want me to customize or repair it, I don't know how it's gonna work. I know earlier XM stuff like the Captain America, which was one of their first ones. A friend of mine has that one, and it says cold cast porcelain. So when you actually grab the statue, it's very, very cold to the touch compared to like the sideshow statues where it wasn't as cold. So you can almost feel when you lift it up and you sort of like knock it, you can almost feel that it was, like a different type of a material than polystone. So I don't know if XM has gone away from that. From what I can tell right now, I don't know if this is porcelain anymore because it looks like colored resin to me. Basically, from just looking at this, it just looks like a resin statue that's casted in a skin tone, and then from here, it's just a transparency shade of of just the muscle tones, some dry brushing on the chest, and then some colors on the veins. So it doesn't really look like it's been blended at all because the skin tone is already there. So I mean, from looking at this, it's just basically a colored resin, a transparency shade. And then that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm not really seeing much else to it. And then lifting this up a little bit, it does feel more like a resin, though. It doesn't feel like porcelain, but I'm not really sure. So I've never really drilled into this stuff before, at least not this one. So I really don't have a lot of experience. But just the way this kind of broke off, it definitely didn't break like, polystone. It looks like it broke like resin, basically. Just a nice, good, clean break. It didn't look like it shattered, but I don't really know. So it's going to be a little bit difficult to show this on camera because I told the client, I said, once I start drilling into this, I don't know if it's going to shatter more. I don't know, how it's going to work. So I use Aves to repair my stuff. So, I told him, I said, if I can't match this, basic bare resin as much as I possibly can, we might have to do a little custom work with maybe adding some blood or something over there to hide the repair as much as possible. But I think I could come as close as possible to it, so we'll see. So I'm going to try to do my normal thing, but the only problem here is we got two pieces that broke off here. So I might have to kind of do some fudge work on there to kind of like not put this piece on, or I don't know, we'll see how I can manage it. And then I think what's going to have to happen is afterwards, once I sort of do the repair, then I'm going to have to drum out the part to get the claw back in. It could be easier to install the claw at the end again. So I mean, the claw came out nice though. They really did a great job with the claw. You could see basically, it just kind of, it just threw a little bit of a notching in there. So this way, when you glue it in, it holds in pretty well. So that's kind of what we're going to try to do. Now I told the client not to send the base and all that because it's just having all this stuff for shipping would be a nightmare, even though it might help a little bit. But I'll try to kind of work on him in the box without breaking the other claws and stuff. So we'll kind of like come back and forth. I'm not really going to be able to show everything I'm working on. So it's the first time I'm working on XM stuff. We'll see how this goes. Hopefully this material is really fixable. I have talked to some other people where they said they fixed some XMs and they said it's fine. But you know, I don't know, maybe stuff's changed over the years. So I'm talking about earlier XM stuff, so maybe their materials changed. So let me go into the garage, or I'll probably maybe just bring the vacuum over here. I'll kind of do some Dremel work. We'll do some A's work and glue, get that in there, and then hopefully, you know, I can match up the skin as best as possible. Went in with this drill, as you can see, and it went in fine. No cracks, nothing. It worked out pretty fine. It's sort of Dremel's like, not really like polystone, but it feels more like a harder resin. Like if, yeah, it's kind of like an in-between of smooth-on resin that you would just get at Smooth-On's company and to cast up in your garage, and actually polystone, so it's kind of like in the middle. But I can still feel that this stuff kind of cracks with your fingernail, so you could kind of crack this stuff off with your fingernail. Fairly easy, but not too easy, but it's pretty thin. So that, you know, so it's durable stuff. It's not bad, but it doesn't feel like, porcelain, like a porcelain I'm thinking about as you get at the Disney store. So I did Dremel out here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put some, I'm going to mix up some A's, and I'm going to put a little bit of dab of glue, and then I'll put this finger on over here, and I'll have to let it sit. Because if I put this piece on here, so if we put this tiny piece here and then we put this here, so you have like, this piece, another piece, you have nothing really to bond it, and probably this will just break off again anyway. I would like to try to get a rod in here to there, but I don't know if that's going to work because I have to get this, blade in here, so that's a problem. So I'd rather kind of like just get this like, situated over here with A's and stuff. I might even have to Dremel out this little palm part here after I kind of attach this and fill it in with A's again. And I have to thicken it up. There's no choice in the matter. I mean, the only way to get this in there with that is going to be an issue. So you can kind of see you have very little resin holding this finger on to get this, claw in here. So that's kind of probably why that crack and broke off so easy. So I want to mix up some stuff. We'll come back after it's kind of put together, and we could go from there and try to hopefully match it up as best as we can, and then hit it with all the paint. It's the next day, and I'm pretty much sanding this down right now, just kind of going over it. This section over here underneath, the palm area over there, what I did is I Dremeled that out a little bit because that part was just glued down, and the glue is really not going to keep it really as sturdy. So I'm Dremeling out a little bit, and I'm going to build up that little palm area a little bit thicker than what it was because I have no choice. Got to really make sure this is secured, because I don't want to go in there and try and drill out the part for the claw, and then all of a sudden the finger just falls out again. So I got to really make sure it's nice and secured. I did notice though, when hitting this with the Dremel tool, you get a really different kind of smell compared to like polystone or smooth-on resin. It's very, very potent. So basically I use my vacuum cleaner while like Dremeling this, so this way you don't get a lot of that fumes and stuff all over the place. But other than that, hopefully by tomorrow, this should be pretty much ready to go to start working out the claw. This is working out pretty well, but it's also a little bit tricky. The reason why is you can see how this claw is. It kind of goes in and then down. And that problem is there's not much meat in the palm. So when it's kind of coming into here, it kind of wants to go through the palm. So I actually Dremeled through the bottom of here. No choice about that. It just happened. But the way this goes in, I mean, I pretty much got it to fit where it should be. It's a little bit tricky. I might have to kind of Dremel out just a little bit more. Because what it is you don't want to not have it so tight that when you go to glue this in, if you're not careful, you glue it in wrong and it's not lined up. I got to get this as lined up as best as I can. And I'd rather put a lot of glue in there and kind of let it kind of squeeze out a bit. And then I could kind of Dremel that out and touch it up. I just don't want it to squeeze out onto the metal though. That's the problem. So it's going to be a little tricky. Now I did Dremel through the bottom of the palm because it'll be a little bit easier. When you squeeze this in, it'll come through the palm and I can touch that up easier than it's squeezing up around the metal. So that's why I put that little hole through the palm. It's easier that way. So I'd rather put some glue in there and squeeze it through and then wipe it off with the palm and touch it up than to get it all messed up over there. Of course, they designed this in a way where it kind of goes in. Now, this claw, on the other hand, works out great because that hand's a fist. So when this goes in there, you have all that meat, where this one doesn't really have a lot of meat there. I know they wanted to make all the claws the same and not make separate ones, but these set of claws should have kind of went in a little bit separate, where they kind of go in and they go deeper into the hand instead of to the palm. But it works, though. So I'm going to Dremel this out a little bit more. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to mix up some paint, and I'm going to touch up the paint here. I'll probably just paint it right here instead of trying to bring it to the airbrush booth. Touch up the paint, and then once that's pretty much set up, I'll attach the claw, and then after the claw is set and everything, I could go back in with some Aves, touch up a little parts around the areas that need to be touched up with Aves, and hit it again with paint, and then we should be done. It's just one of these things I got to be very careful. I don't want to break any of the other fingers or the claws or any of the stuff on him, so it's got to be leaning on his back the whole entire time. So let me get up some paint. We'll try to mix up the colors as best as possible, and then hopefully we should finish it. So I was grabbing some paints and stuff, and actually this apricot from Liquitex is sort of close to this skin tone, a little bit, but not quite. But I do have some raw sienna, so I'm going to put a little bit of raw sienna in here, like a drop or two. And then hopefully this will kind of bring the color a little bit closer. Trying to match it as best as I can. Yeah, it's like, this will help maybe with the shade a little bit. And the other thing is I have to remember the colors that I use for this too when I actually go back to touch all this up. So I'll put these aside. So they're going to put a little bit more raw sienna in here. And this should kind of help darken it up and get a little bit closer. It's very, very difficult to match resin colored. I've tried it in the past too on a couple other statues. Now they do have some darker stuff in here too, so what I gotta do is kind of clean this out a bit and then go in with a little bit darker, and hopefully we can start matching it up. Alright, so what I did is I mixed up some skin tone of Garage Kit's Flesh, and then I mixed up some of that raw sienna, and that's sort of giving me that little bit of that color back. Yeah, we're starting to match it up just a little bit more. Alright, so next is it's got a little bit of, like if I look over here on this arm about there, it's got not really raw sienna, it's a little bit more, let's see what color we got. Burnt sienna, a little bit of burnt sienna, which is kind of more of a darker brown. That should kind of help pull it together a little bit. Mix it into the cup a little bit, spray it in. A little bit darker. Now, one of the tricks is when you repair something, sometimes you gotta kind of spray and blend it out across other areas. You know, you gotta sort of kind of blend it and kind of make it work. Okay, and then we're gonna go back to a little bit more Garage Kit Flesh tone. Lighten this up a little bit more. Now when I usually put stuff in the cup. A little bit more. Alright, so that looks pretty good for now. So what I'll do is I'll let this, a little bit of overspray, not the end of the world. So what I'll do is I'll let this kind of dry up a bit. And then what I'll do is I'll install the blade into it. And then after that we can like let that set up for the night, and then I can come back tomorrow and touch it up. So what I'll do is I'll probably add a little bit of, I think there's some kind of like, bluish on the veins, so I'll kind of add a little bit of blue wash there before I do it, and then go back in there and sort of touch it up. And then we should match it up as close as possible. Okay, so what happened was I put the claw on there and I was working it, and I realized this claw was just too far in this direction. It just wasn't looking right, so I guess the way I looked on some pictures online, this claw is supposed to be really close to this finger. So what I did is I kind of wiggled the claw back out. It's a good thing the glue was semi-dried. I was able to get it back out, so I cleaned everything up again. And I hit areas now. I put the claw on correctly, and I hit some other areas with some Aves. So what I'm going to do right now is I got my vacuum cleaner. I'm just going to put it next to it, sand all this down, touch up with some paint, and then we should be ready to go. And then I'll kind of give my final thoughts of working on XM stuff. Working on with an XM piece, I matched up the hand as best as I could. You can see that there is kind of like shininess on him. All they do is take a paintbrush and they just added paintbrush areas to make it look like it's water dripping down or sweat or melted snow. I'm not really sure. You can see I match up the hand as best as possible. I wish I could have showed a little bit more, but you know, I had to leave him on this towel without breaking anything else. So as far as repairing XM stuff, it's definitely doable. Their stuff is a little bit more fragile, I would say, so you got to be a little bit more delicate with it. So this hand worked out fine because it was broken over here at the bottom of the paw, you know. But if it was broken up around the fingers and there was no claws, you can fix it. But with the fingers there and the claws, it'd be even harder. Usually, like a lot of stuff that breaks in fingers, what I like to try and do is add a rod in there. So with this, you know, I'm not really sure how it would work out. Like, can I Dremel into this area without it shattering, cracking? Maybe I could, maybe I can't, not really sure. As far as, you know, adding a support to an XM item, say like this foot over here, the key broke off, would I be able to rebuild the key and make him sturdy again by adding a rod in there? I'm not really sure. It might break, it might crack, it might not work. So I haven't really had a chance to, you know, customize or really repair an XM piece to see what it can and can't do. I'm pretty sure it would work, but I'm not really sure, you know, like say this leg is broken. Say this leg broke here and we had to add a rod into here to secure it and then, you know, fix up something over here. Would this secure well, or if I Dremel out that area and add Magic Sculpt with a rod, would it be strong enough to, durable? Not really sure. But being able to actually see an XM piece in person, I can tell all this is just cast it up in skin tone, and then it's just a shade over it. It's basically one color shade here, maybe a little dry brush and a brown for the hair, and then maybe a little bit of that brown darker on the vein. So it's not like there's a lot of blending going on. I mean, it's just casted up clear resin and then some transparencies on it, and then that's it. So whenever you want to repair something like this, you got to take in consideration, you got to try and match that clear, you know, that skin tone resin as best as you can, and you got to kind of fudge it up. But all in all, definitely can repair XM stuff. It's just something I got to kind of, you know, dive into a little bit more. I've been keeping my eye on like XM stuff, you know, like on eBay secondhand. If there's ever anything I'm kind of interested in that I could get really cheap and then do a customized project on it to see. I've had a couple of clients in the past ask me to customize XM, but I always tell them, like, look, you know, they claim it's cold cast porcelain. I don't know like my limitations on it. Do I Dremel into it? Does it crack? Does it crumble? You know, I don't know. So I would have to work on more down the line. So as these XM stuff get produced more and more, and then, you know, maybe some on the secondary market start dropping in pricing, or maybe stuff is shattered or broken, and I come across them, I can experiment a little bit more. But for right now, it worked out well. It's definitely repairable. You just got to try and match up the stuff as best as you can. So thanks for watching. Hopefully it gives you guys an idea if you have some XM stuff out there that you can repair them. And we'll be back with some more videos.